I'm going to talk about how at HP Inc. we have transformed the way we think about learning. And it was really timely because we did it just as we separated from a large company, HP Inc. overall, into two separate companies. So I'll talk a little bit about the journey of how we got there, but also exactly the process and the way we implemented that. But first, let me talk about the story about when HP separated. So back in November 1st, 2015, HP Inc. became its own standalone company. And Hewlett-Packard Enterprise was the other company that was formed from the big HP company that stood together since the 70s. As we did that, we looked at our culture and we thought, what do we want to change? What do we want to be known for? What do we want to leave behind? And a lot of that truly had to do with the way we think about learning overall and the way that we wanted to shift that. So we started to go out and we had focus groups and we did surveys and we connected with all of the employees in our different regions to figure out what do you want to have learning and development look like in a brand new company. And so a lot of themes came up, of course, and we also looked externally. What's happening out there? What are other companies doing? What research can we learn from? And that helped us to galvanize a few themes that came forward from our employees. One was a huge one. It needed to be a lot easier in terms of the way that they found and shared content. They also wanted to find experts in the company. We have a lot of great and smart people at HP, and yet we can't always find them and we can't always get them to share their expertise because they're kind of hidden in pockets and we don't always know where to go. They also wanted to be able to customize and curate learning. So in addition to what a learning and development team would pull together and make available, employees wanted to take more ownership of it themselves. And of course, as everyone continuously hears, they want to be able to access that on the go with their mobile devices and platforms. So with that, we gathered that feedback. We connected with several platforms and externally to look at what would be the best possible option and how would we do that. We found one that worked the best for us, PathGather. And we not only signed the deal, but from the minute we signed the deal with PathGather to implement, we decided we wanted to do it very quickly. So within 14 weeks of being official with PathGather, we launched this new social learning platform. And so to do that, we had to be pretty smart and thoughtful about how we galvanized. We created both core project teams that were comprised of people both within the HR and L&D function, but also in the business. We knew we needed to tap into people who had a passion for learning and development overall, who could help us curate content and think about how we could pull this together. So from the time we kicked off the project in mid-April, we started to pull together those teams. We had to be thoughtful again about not only the content that we were going to curate, but how would we start to get this out and market it to the organization? Because of course, the way that we come out with it is really important and impactful with the way that it's perceived and the overall value that it has. We also did what we called a beta pilot, where after we had identified a few of what we called early adopters, we brought them in, they helped us curate content. They again represented all different parts of the business. Then we expanded the net a little bit more, and we invited in about 500 employees to test it and to check and see what's working, what isn't. Is it confusing? Do they understand how to access content? Where do they see additional areas that we need to focus on before we launch? And then we launched in July. And we actually were very intentional about not attaching our launch to sort of a learning event, which a lot of organizations do and can be helpful, but we wanted this to be purely something that people accessed because they felt learning was valuable and they wanted to find it in new ways. So with that, we also crowdsourced, which we did for a lot of the work that we're talking about, the name itself. And we wanted to step away from more traditional names that we'd used in the past, like we had HP University. And we wanted to find something that would be different and really describe how different this process was overall of learning and accessing content in a different way. So we came up with Brain Candy. And there actually, I think, were a few bets about how much longer it would be before I was let out the door after trying to launch a learning platform named Brain Candy. But so far, so good. It was received quite well. But a lot of that had to do with the buzz we built quickly and working with the teams across the region. So this is how we started to bring it out. Again, we knew we had great content pulled in to Brain Candy from multiple sources. We had our own learning. We leveraged lynda.com. We pulled that in. Anything with a URL, with a web address, can be pulled into PathGather or Brain Candy, our instance of it, which is fantastic. What that does is it allows employees to pull in their own content that they want to serve up. So you can see we not only had this symbol appear, which was our icon for Brain Candy, but we started to roll it out globally. We had a week of events, and every day we had a different focus that would help employees understand what this new thing is that they can launch and learn on a daily basis. We also came up with a little slogan, fuel your curiosity. And we swapped out the word curiosity with different words. Fuel your network, fuel your growth, fuel your career, so that they could understand that this was a way not only to learn, but to really supercharge the way that they think about their own development overall. And so we put out a kiosk, we had people sign in, and very shortly we had, just within the first 10 days, we had about 12,000 people, out of 50,000 people, logged into Brain Candy. And the feedback from employees was fantastic. This felt fresh, it felt different, it felt new. It felt like a way that it looked like platforms that they used in their own personal lives, which is what we want. As we all know, the line between work and home blurs. And if something at work looks like it was built in 1972, then people don't want to access it. So Brain Candy very much looks and feels like what employees are expecting these days, especially our younger employees coming into the workforce. So really positive feedback overall. And from there, from launch in July, we started to be really aggressive about mining the data. What are we learning about what's being paid attention to? What's being completed? What's being shared? What's being created? We also have an intranet, the Daily Ink, where we have launched stories about people who have been sharing their content and creating it. And it's actually interesting that our employees are going wild with this whole concept of being able to share their own content. And you can see currently we have 27,000 users out of 50,000, and that's 27,000 active users. They're not just signed up but not using it, they're engaged. They can also attach to gatherings, which are groups of people learning about different types of topics. We have over 600 of those. We've had an incredible amount of content completions. Interesting data point about the content completions. The most completed content is actually the content that employees share themselves, which is actually great for us, for my learning function. As much as we're putting content out there, what other employees are deciding is important and key and helpful for their growth is what they're completing the most. Because they can endorse it and they can see what they like rise to the top, just like, again, they can with their other social platforms. So huge success so far. We're now at a point where we're actually looking at what's going to take it to the next step. It's been 9 months now in our journey, and now we're wanting to figure out how can we augment it even more and how can we make it even more applicable for learners across the globe. We have learned a lot of lessons through the launch. We feel like a lot of things went very well. We did go very quickly with the launch, again within 14 weeks. And some of the pieces that we think made it the most successful is that we really worked closely with employees. They were part of the process. We were linked with the business. It wasn't something that we launched at them. It was something they were part of building. And of course, having leadership involved helps. Having a great relationship with IT is key. That was part of the upfront, most important pieces that we were able to attack and solve for. The other thing to just keep in mind, and that we're realizing now too, is that it's a long-term change process. So 9 months in, we have great traction. We're moving in a direction that we think is the right one for the company. We're continuing to get great feedback. We're seeing not just millennials use Brain Candy, but we're seeing all generations within the workforce are hanging on to it. Our different organizations and businesses are using it, from our CTO to our labs to our 3D printing organization, are really latching onto it. So again, it's something that we're paying close attention to, but it is a journey that we're all on together, and look forward to seeing where Brain Candy will take us in the next year or two. So thanks for joining. Appreciate your time.